Welcome to the Sound of Ideas from IdeaStream Public Media. I'm Stephanie Haney. Thanks for being with us today. The 98th Academy Awards is this Sunday, and this year's ceremony has already broken records. Sinners is leading with 16 nominations and is already the most nominated film ever. One Battle After Another is trailing close behind with 13 nominations, and either could challenge the record for the most Oscars won in a single night, which currently stands at 11. Ryan Coogler, nominated for Sinners, could become the first Black director to win Best Director. Here's I Lied to You, performed by Miles Caton as his character Sammy in Sinners, which is nominated for Best Original Song.
There are legends of people born with the gift of making music so true it can pierce the veil between life and death, conjuring spirits from the past
Somebody take me
and the future.
The song that opened up all the doors in that movie. Chloe Zhao, nominated for Hamnet, could become the first woman to win Best Director twice. Here's Paul Mescal as William Shakespeare and Jacoby Jupe as Hamnet Shakespeare, who play father and son in the film.
Because I need you to look after your mother and your sisters. Will you do that?
Yes.
Will you be brave?
Yes.
Yes. Will you be brave?
Yes.
Will you be brave?
Yes! Yes, I'll be brave. I'll be brave. I'll be brave.
Sweet moment there. And Leonardo DiCaprio is nominated for Best Actor, while his co-stars Sean Penn and Benicio del Toro are both up for Best Supporting Actor. Here's DiCaprio in One Battle After Another.
My name is Bob Ferguson. I don't know if you've ever heard of me, all right? I was part of French 75 for years and years, all right? They used to call me Ghetto Pat, Rocket Man, stuff like that. Only problem is I fried my brain since then, man. I have abused drugs and alcohol for the past 30 years, man. I'm a drug and alcohol lover, and I cannot remember for the life of me or the life of my only child the answer to your question, what time is it?
8:15.
With Conan O'Brien returning as the host of Hollywood's Biggest Night for the second year in a row, who will take home the biggest awards of the night? And looking back at the year in film, which movies deserved a little more love than they received? Our panel of Northeast Ohio cinephiles will share their thoughts. Joining us today, we've got a full house with us. We've got Igal Kaufman, multimedia journalist here at IdeaStream. Hi, Igal.
Hey, thanks for having me.
We've got George Thomas as well, staff writer at the Akron Beacon Journal. Hi, George.
Hi, how are you today?
Great. Thanks for being here with us. We appreciate it. We also have Bilgasu Sisman, director of Cinematheque at the Cleveland Institute of Art. Thanks for being here, Bilgasu.
Hello.
And we have Nat Dinga, producer and instructor at Tri-C Film Academy. Hi, Nate. Great to have you here.
Great to be here.
We would love to hear your thoughts on the best films from last year, whether they got a nomination or not. Maybe you loved Wicked for Good, which didn't receive a nomination. Maybe you loved K-pop Demon Hunters, a surprise Netflix hit which had fans well beyond its intended kid audience giving rave reviews. You can give us a call. The number to do that is 866-578-0903. You can also send us an email at soi@ideastream.org, and you can message us on Instagram. We are at The Sound of Ideas. So we'll kick things off. I'll ask the entire panel here today what you thought the best movie that you watched in 2025 was, and why. Igal?
I think my favorite film of the year in the end had to be Train Dreams. It was really just a beautiful film. It's an adaptation of a Dennis Johnson novel and novella. And other adaptations of his work have always stolen my heart, like Jesus' Son. And so I thought it was really beautiful. I actually know some people who worked on it. And it's just gorgeous. If you've ever been out in that area of the country, you'll sort of recognize the amazing beauty of the film. And the acting is just amazing. So I really thought it was a really amazing film.
All right, George?
You know what's weird about that film, and I understand what you're saying. It should win cinematography, and it's a streaming film. But, you know, I'm mainstream, and at least this year, I'm very mainstream, and it's 1A and 1B, and you could flip them, Sinners and One Battle After Another. I sat in Sinners, you know, I had to go to a matinee because there wasn't a local screening for critics here, and my initial reaction was, "What the heck did I just watch?" And it was a good feeling of what I just watched, and the scene you showed earlier had a lot to do with it. One battle after another. Paul Thomas Anderson has never made a truly bad film, and you look at his movies, and it's like, how many masterpieces does one director get in a career? And so those are the two for me, and he's got local connections, so I really appreciate that about him.
Son of Goulardi.
Yes.
Oh, we love a local connection. All right. Bilge Sue, how about for you?
I think I'm going to be in the minority here, but my favorite films didn't make any of these lists. I watch a lot of international and independent cinema. I think my favorites came from those picks. This might be recency bias, but I think one of my favorites this year was A Poet by Simon Mesa Soto from Colombia. It was Colombia's submission for the Oscars this year. It's a beautiful movie about the failed dreams of the creatives, and it's innovative, featuring non-actors. I loved it, and there's so many other independent and, again, international movies that made my list. From American Independence, I loved Sorry Baby, which I think should have gotten more love from all this attention. And from documentaries, I loved My Undesirable Friends, looking at journalists in Russia who are trying to do their work despite crazy repression from the government. So from the list that I have in front of me, I think I gotta say my favorite one from the best nominees, best picture nominees, was The Secret Agent that we played early in January.
Okay. And Nat, how about for you?
You know, I'm going to have to go with one bell after another. I just kind of, watching Paul Thomas Anderson movies, I feel like it's kind of accumulation of all the great movies that he's already made. And it's just to have him actually make a movie that's set in, modern, like just the current state, and says a lot about what the world is right now. I just feel like it's probably the best movie of the year.
For me, I didn't see one battle after another. It was hard for me to get to the theater this year, but talking about recency bias, I'll have to tell you, I saw Eternity in December with Elizabeth Olsen, Callum Turner, and Miles Teller, and I thought it was just such a beautiful movie about such an impossible decision that someone would have to make about who to spend the afterlife with. And I thought that was really beautiful. I had seen there was some buzz that it would be a late season contender to potentially be incorporated into the Oscars. Did not happen for them, though. We did get an email in from Tom. Tom says, "Is it just me, or did one battle after another seem heavily inspired by The Big Lebowski?" Ponder that.
I could see that.
There's certainly a lot of connections running through it. I think, honestly, One Battle After Another was so successful for me because it, you could see whatever you wanted in that film. I think people who wanted to see sort of like a pan to activism and leftism could see that, and other people could see a stinging critique of that. And I thought that was really brilliant. And of course, the Big Lebowski references, there weren't really overt references. It was just sort of a vibe that was inspired by it, but you could definitely see it. It was running throughout it.
And it was amazing that I don't know when he filmed that. Was it a year and a half or so ago?
Yeah.
Yeah. So how did it manage to line up with the current times?
Well,
Always impressive.
And he also said he'd been writing it for like the last 10 years. So he'd really been working on it for a long time. And it is fun to see Leo basically come in and be the dude and,
And for those who haven't seen it, which includes myself, can we get a quick synopsis of One Battle After Another?
Sure. It's based on a Thomas Pynchon novel, and so the narratives can be a little bit squirrely there. But in principle, it's about a father who was part of a revolutionary organization, and now he's got a daughter that he's looking after, and an enemy from his past has sort of come out of the shadows and is threatening his family. And it unfolds in bizarre, funny ways. I think another interesting thing about it was that it was sort of billed as an action film. And if you watch it...
Comedy action film.
Yes, and it's certainly funny, and it's certainly thrilling, and it's certainly suspenseful and all these things, but it doesn't really have much action. If you actually get into the film, a lot of the action that is there is really innovatively filmed.
Yeah. But it's
I-
also the chase. That's
chase
the
scene.
action, which kind of like starts from the beginning till
Right,
the
and
end.
it goes the whole movie.
And I
so.
think that's the strongest point of the movie, like the pace that it was able to build.
Personally, I don't think Warner Brothers knew how to market it. And to dump it in the middle of September,
Yeah.
which is once again become for lack of a better word, a dumping ground for it seemed weird. And after seeing it, I'm like, what are they doing?
Yeah.
Let's talk about that timing in terms of when is a great time for a film to be released if you really are looking at awards contention.
Well, as multiple people have mentioned, recency bias. So obviously the best time, if you can release that film in December, you stand quite a good chance of being on the tip of people's tongues come Oscar season.
And there are very few exceptions to that. This year it's Sinners, and in the past it's been Saving Private Ryan, which won Best Picture, and it was released in June or July.
It didn't win Best Picture.
No,
Saving
was
Private
it?
Ryan.
Was
nominated.
That was
It was
Yeah.
nominated. It was direct. Was it director?
Director.
Yeah,
He won
director won, yeah.
I know that it split that year.
Yeah.
But other films this year, I mean, notably, one for me, I think the biggest snub for me from the Oscars was The Testament of Anne Lee, which I think paid heavily for coming out, I think in February or March of 25.
Didn't it come out later in the year? I thought it came out in November.
No, I think I think it sort of got some buzz around the Oscar season, so it came back around people. But I think it came out earlier in the year, and I think it sort of paid for that. And I thought that was a tremendous film and really unique and
It
interesting.
was beautiful, but I think it was a little too musical for the taste of the Oscars.
Yeah,
voters.
certainly.
I loved it.
We've got a call now from Lucy in Seven Hills. Lucy, welcome to The Sound of Ideas. Go ahead.
Hey, good morning, everybody. Just want to ask about the Paul McCartney and the Wings documentary, Man on the Run. I just finished watching it with my husband yesterday, and I was really impressed with two things about it besides the editing, and the technical. But the fact that it really portrayed what McCartney had to go through from scratch, starting all over again after being a Beatle, and how demoralizing that was for him and how he came back, but also how hard he worked, to raise a family and to be a humble man. And I just want to know what some of you think of that. Thank you.
I haven't seen it.
I haven't seen it.
Yeah,
either.
unfortunately.
As much as I like the Beatles and McCartney, I did not see it.
Yeah, it's quite new. I haven't gotten a chance to see it yet, but I love documentaries like that explore elements of well-known creators that maybe you don't really remember. And I think a lot of people, especially now, I think there's probably a lot of kids out there who've never even heard of Wings, even though they know the Beatles and they know Paul McCartney. Now, I know some people are like, everybody knows Wings, but.
You're giving the kids a lot of credit for knowing the Beatles.
Well, exactly. So I think I love stuff like that. So I can't wait to watch it myself.
Let's talk specifically about the Best Picture nominations this year. So, a quick rundown of those: Begonia, F1, Frankenstein, Hamnet, Marty Supreme, One Battle After Another, The Secret Agent, Sentimental Value, Sinners, and Train Dreams. So, we'll start on the opposite end of the panel. Do you have a thought, Nat? Any surprises there, and which you thought should take home the award on Sunday?
Well, once again, I thought One Battle After Another should take the award. I was surprised that Frankenstein was nominated. I don't know. I saw it and I felt it just didn't really grab me, and it just it felt more like an award for the accumulation of for all of Guillermo del Toro's work. And it's funny how I feel like Marty Supreme has kind of fallen off of the map for everyone. I do feel like it's kind of one of those movies where you just want to tell the main character, just can you please stop doing what you're doing? And I think for a movie that came in with so much heat, it really feels like it's kind of fallen apart and not really now it's just not really even in contention anymore.
And what about for you, Bill Gasu? Any surprises there, and which do you think should win this weekend?
I haven't seen F1, but I heard a lot of discourse about how maybe it's the odd one out among the 10. I can't really comment on it because I haven't seen it. I was surprised for Begonia, not because I didn't like it. I actually really, really liked it, but it feels like, just looking at all the other nominees, it feels like a smaller film, which actually kind of makes me happy because that's not what Oscars usually go for. But I was surprised to see it. I think the acting of Jesse Plemons and Emma Stone probably brought it up to that level.
For you, George?
What do I want to win or what do I expect to win?
Let's go with both. Let's hear both.
I actually, between 1A and 1B, Sinners and One Battle After Another, I don't care which wins as long as it's one of those. I mean, I think those were the two absolute best films of the year. And like I said, I've always been a PTA fan from the very beginning. Sinners is, it's kind of personal when you're African American because he takes you on a journey through your own history, and he explores Ryan Coogler. Explores elements of African American culture that a lot of people aren't aware of, and I think it opened a few eyes. So, and on a different level, it's also multicultural because if you look at what he did there, he shows how, in some aspects, you could take it this way, that how America in some ways is a melting pot, especially among certain segments who have always been outcasts. I found it interesting that the main antagonist was Irish. And the Irish in America were not always accepted either. So, it was interesting for me at that level.
And since we're talking about Sinners very quickly, George, for people who hadn't seen it, how would you describe the plot without giving away major spoilers? Which is hard to do.
Prohibition era vampires who were African American.
Definitely a battle, a battle from what I perceived when I saw it, a battle with trying to wrestle with the past and move into the future and having some difficulty with that and a lot of surprises.
Yeah. And the best, one of the best things about it, it's like, and I'll be ticked if I Lied to You doesn't win best song. That one will tick me off. It just seemed a perfect balance between story and music that moved the narrative along.
Really beautiful performances in that movie for sure. Igal, how about you from the Best Pictures nominee list?
As Bill Gasu sort of brought up, I thought F1 was a fun movie, but I was baffled that it made its way into Best Picture. It was a very forgettable film for me. Frankenstein also, I actually liked it, but I think, for instance, it compares unfavorably with Kenneth Branagh's Frankenstein, which was panned. I mean, that movie, people hated it. This movie didn't do anything for me that movie didn't do a lot better. And so I was surprised it was so beloved. I also was surprised. Begonia I liked it a lot too. It's a remake of Save the Green Planet, which I liked a little more, the original version. I think this film and Eddington and Weapons were sort of like the buzz movies of the year. And I was also pretty surprised that Eddington was completely blanked here. I've liked Eddington a lot. In fact, I liked it more than Begonia or Weapons. So I was sort of surprised that it didn't make its way here, but certainly wasn't undeserving. And I do think, in terms of predictions, Emma Stone, who is sort of an Academy fan, I think she's going to win for Begonia. I thought she was...
Doesn't she have enough?
I know. I'm not saying whether I think she should win or whether it's morally right in the universe. I'm just saying that I think that is what is going to happen.
The Meryl Streep of our times.
Do you really think over Hamnet, over Jessie?
Yeah.
I do think so. Jessie Buckley is like, she's on fire right now. She is the it actor of the moment, and I do think the Academy is going to love her. I have a feeling Emma Stone is not done with the throne quite yet.
I feel like Jessie Buckley with the big acting in Hamnet, if she doesn't win, I can't predict Oscars anymore.
Yeah. I agree.
Speaking of Hamnet, which is the story of William Shakespeare and William Shakespeare's wife and the son Hamnet and the loss of that son at a young age. At the age of 11, I think, if I wasn't looking at this email from Mike here in Cleveland, I would think it was from my father-in-law because he had all the praise for Hamnet, Mike Sr. This Mike in Cleveland, not Mike Sr., says, Hamnet broke me. If I ever see a film greater than Hamnet, I'll die of happiness. Perfect through and through. And that kid, what a brilliant young actor. A lot of praise for Hamnet. But we talk about Jessie Buckley. We talked about Marty Supreme a little bit there. When we talk about these awards ceremonies, and also when we talk about seeing film in general, both of those actors, Jessie Buckley and Timothée Chalamet, had some difficult PR moments this year. So how much do we think that factors into not only people's interest in seeing a film in general, but also in awards situations? And just for a quick recap, Timothée Chalamet made some controversial comments in an interview with Matthew McConaughey, had talked about how opera and the ballet were things that nobody cares about anymore, and that was really not taken very well by people in those respective fields. Jessie Buckley had made some comments about how she had her husband get rid of his cats, and the cat lovers did not love that. So what do we think about that, George?
I think Timothée Chalamet made his comments prior to the end of Oscar voting.
Yeah.
I think
Could
that
cost him a lot more.
Oh yeah, and coupled with the fact that Michael B. Jordan won the SAGs, it could hurt even. Yeah,
I think with Timothée Chalamet, it seemed like he really kind of tried to embody the cockiness of the character in doing the press tour.
Yeah.
And, he's dating a Kardashian, and there are all those things that I feel like kind of turn off a lot of the older voters. And, he comes out and he's very just being so cocky with it. I think it really did turn off a lot of people that were,
method
rooting for
acting
him.
to an extreme.
Exactly.
Method acting.
And I would say he sold the movie. Like the movie made money and did very well, I think, off of how he was in the press, but it might cost him an Oscar.
Nat, can you tell us a little bit about Marty Supreme for people not familiar?
Marty Supreme is about Timothée Chalamet wants to be the greatest ping pong player in the history of ping pong players, and really wants it's set in the 1950s in New York in the 1950s, and he really is just a person going through life with this one goal, and he just going after every person completely, that this is the only thing that he cares about, and willing to burn every bridge and destroy everything just to get to this one moment. And that's pretty much the movie.
Mm-hmm.
I thought, honestly, Timothée Chalamet was dynamite. I think he's deserving. I don't think he's going to win either. I don't know if these comments are really going to cost him. I thought the whole thing was a little overblown. I mean, as a fan of both Cats and opera, I didn't think either of them were really a big deal. I think most regular people are sort of, I don't think it rises.
I think the Academy is going to make him wait the way they made Leonardo DiCaprio wait all those years.
Yeah.
I agree, but I don't think it has anything to do with this kerfuffle.
Yeah, and there's just so much noise. We'll forget about it in a day, basically. Like the press cycle also just is ongoing. I don't know if it's going to be on anybody's mind come Monday.
Yeah.
For anyone who is just joining us here on The Sound of Ideas, we are talking about Hollywood's biggest night out, which is happening this Sunday, the 98th Academy Awards. And we're talking about film in general. What was great this year? What was maybe overlooked? And what do the films that are being celebrated as nominees say about the cultural moment that we have here? We've got a great panel with us. We've got Igal Kaufman, multimedia journalist with IdeaStream Public Media, George Thomas, staff writer with the Akron Beacon Journal, Bilgasu Sisman, director of Cinematheque at the Cleveland Institute of Art, and Nat Dinga, producer and instructor at the Tri-C Film Academy. We have an email here in from Barb, and if you want to share a comment or give us a question, you can call us at 866-578-0903. You can also email us at soi@ideastream.org. So this comment comes in from Barb and Mark, and it's about the song at the end of Wicked for Good, Because I Knew You. They said that was absolutely fantastic. Another song that keeps coming up is Golden from K-pop Demon Hunters.
Yeah.
And we already talked about I Lied to You from Sinner. So how are we feeling about the competition for Best Song?
This is going to be a cruel competition because I agree with you that the song from Sinners, by any measure, deserves victory.
Out of duty, I watched K-pop Demon Hunters. Wasn't a fan of it. And then I listened to Golden. Obviously, it's not even the best movie or best song from that movie. Yeah, it isn't. It doesn't move the narrative. It was a song written to get a hit. They got their hit.
Yeah.
But the best song wasn't even put forth as a nominee. They didn't offer it.
Yeah, K-pop Demon Hunters was a really impressive film, and I've watched it now in parts 900 different times with all of my friends' kids.
I'm sorry.
But to me, it's just not in the same class. But you have to, has anything captured the audience's minds like this in a long time.
No.
I mean, like, I have a 6-year-old daughter, and I'll tell you, it is a song that I've heard 1,000 times at this point, and I really feel like I agree. For Sinners, that song brings the movie together. It's kind of the point of the movie in some respects, how it like brings it together. But with Golden, it just feels like such a big hit. It's kind of like the My Heart Will Go On of like, you know.
The one it reminds me of is Let It Go. Another song I absolutely detested, which I think it won Best Song, right?
Yeah.
It must have won. It was.
And see, that's the Academy never used to be about Best Song being one that was a big hit. That's what troubles me. I mean, who would have thought it's hard out there for a pimp? Pimp would be Best Song,
Right.
From Hustle and Flow.
Hustle and
And it's
Flow,
like
yeah.
now we're getting Golden, and it's like, I'll be honest with you, I never heard the song on the radio. Of course, I shuffle a playlist from my phone, so that makes sense. But it didn't do anything for me.
I think it's dangerous when it's a song that's aimed at kids. You run the risk of it not doing much for adults. Now, I think a lot of adults would argue, "Hey, look, I loved Golden. I love K-pop Demon Hunters. I just wasn't one of them."
Yeah.
Maybe it's because you heard it 900
That's true. And look, when you see your friends' cute kids singing it, it makes it a little better. You're like, okay, I don't hate this as much, but
My 31-year-old son loves it. He pestered me to watch the movie, listen to the song, and I'm like, no.
Well, I think the weird difference is whether it's your kids. If it's your kids, you sort of love it too. All my friends, they also like it,
Well,
but
you
I don't
have
the
to give
kids.
in, Yeah.
Yeah.
Like
Mob
if you fight
mentality,
it doesn't. Yeah.
At that point. We have a call now from Christian in Cleveland. Christian, welcome to the Sound of Ideas. Go ahead.
Hi. First of all, I want to thank you for opening the show by mentioning Train Dreams. I saw it at the Cinematheque, and it deserves a big screen. It's just beautiful. If there was no sound and no acting, just visually, just a beautiful film. But my real question is the international films this year. I feel like, weirdly, they're better than the American films this year. I mean, I think Ryan Coogler will win director. I think Jessie Buckley will win actress. I think Michael Jordan will win Best Actor, but the foreign films this year, it's really tough. And I also want to thank the Cinematheque real quickly for screening all of these movies. They're just beautiful on your big screen, so thank you for that.
Thank you.
Thank you for the call, Christian. And Bill Gasu, do you have thoughts about what Christian was saying there?
I can't agree more. No, as I was saying, I also do feel like there is not enough attention being given to world cinema when it comes to the Oscars, which is predictable. It's a U.S.-based awards show.
Although Secret Agent, big contender.
Secret Agent is a big contender, but I don't think it's gonna win. Not because
Not the best picture. I think it has in foreign category.
I think it is gonna win the foreign category. If not, it's gonna be It Was Just an Accident. I think it's between the two of them. I really liked Sentimental Value. I love Joachim Trier. This didn't create as much buzz as it did for him with The Worst Person in the World, but I actually liked Sentimental Value more than that film. Surat, we showed it last weekend. For those of you who've seen it, it's a very shocking movie. It had a lot of anticipation around it. If you haven't seen it, I recommend you see it, but it's not for everybody. And The Voice of Henry Rajab, I think, is a very timely movie. It's a movie that had to be made. I had my reservations about it as a movie, but again, I gotta say, there's just so many other beautiful international films that are out there that I really, really recommend everybody to check out. Like, if you could just get the short list for international submissions, I would just go to bat for all of them, really.
And I would add also in terms of The Secret Agent, which I can't speak, it was an absolutely amazing film. Wagner Moura, I don't think he stands a chance in the lead actor category, unfortunately, because Michael Jordan was so good, and also because Timothy Chalamet. But Wagner Moura was is amazing in The Secret Agent. He's been amazing ever since. I think the first time I saw him was Elite Squad, and ever since I saw that film, that Brazilian film, he's just been better and better.
And especially like he plays 3 different characters in that movie, where he's the self before he's being chased, when he's being chased, and then his son later on, and it's all very subtle, but it works so well, and he's so good in it.
I agree. You know what? With him, if you want to check out something not in the film realm, he did a Apple TV series last year called Dope Thief.
Oh yeah,
and he's
with Brian
fantastic.
Tyree Johnson.
Yeah, and check that out too. He's amazing to watch.
Yeah, he's a really, and he was also in Civil War in that film, which I didn't think was a very successful film, but I thought he was tremendous in it. So
I also gotta say Ethan Hawke was great in Blue Moon.
Yeah, he was.
It's a very deserving performance.
For anyone just joining us here on The Sound of Ideas, we are taking a look at film from 2025 as the Oscars will be this Sunday, Hollywood's biggest night out. We've got a full panel here if you have any comments or questions or film recommendations, or maybe you want to talk about a snub for the awards season this year. The number is 866-578-0903. You can also email us at soi@ideastream.org. We got an email in from Chris in Ohio City who is giving accolades to a movie that Bill Gassou had mentioned earlier, A Poet, which was not nominated this year, but however, Chris is saying would really give kudos to that and appreciative of that. So we mentioned streaming a series and just a moment ago from George, and let's talk about artificial intelligence and streaming and those kinds of things, and if that will have an impact on what we're seeing when it comes to awards. Now, I know artificial intelligence, streaming, not the same things, but, a technological segue there. So do we think AI will ever create something, quote, air quotes, better than what we're seeing created now and infiltrate into the awards seasons?
That would be taking the human element out of it. And no, I don't. As someone who writes, and I've written, even though it's short form, it's like, how does artificial intelligence have an opinion, a perspective, independent thought? So, yeah.
Especially with, it's regurgitating. It's taking everything that's been done before and, trying to put it together in an algorithm to make something that could move the culture forward. I don't see how that can work. So no.
I mean, they're correct to be sad about it, and it certainly sounds depressing and like a death of everything beautiful about art, but yes, I do see it happening. I mean, I definitely think that 10 years from now, the Oscars will have AI-produced films. And now, will that mean that we care about the Oscars anymore? Probably not as much or at all, but I think that I think that whenever we have any technological leap like that, we sort of hope. I think the first colorists, I think when Adobe came out, colorists and people like that thought there'll never be somebody who just clicked on stuff to get, but I think, and then maybe we'll treasure that one kernel of human that's within that AI movie even more. It is sad, but I do think it is going to happen.
I think certain categories are going to be more relevant for the use of AI than others, at least for the short term. And I don't know if that's necessarily completely bad because it can be used as a tool. For example, in like sound and visual effects, there can be like certain enhancements or like experimentation with the help of AI that could elevate certain elements that still have human involvement. But I don't necessarily see that for like writing or directing.
I do think it will elevate the art of documentary filmmaking altogether because I think people will sort of treasure reality more. And so I think, it'll sort of, we're already in a world where documentary is, as popular or more popular than it's ever been. But I think it stands to grow even more as people sort of place a higher premium on reality.
Let's talk about accessibility of the Oscars in general. Are the Oscars, first question, accessible or inaccessible when it comes to the general public? Does it seem like something that's maybe a little heady, or maybe people don't have the money to get out and see these films? And do we think that streaming could potentially change that trend? We, talked about Train Dreams being streaming, for example. I'll start with you, Nat.
I would say that streaming has made it more accessible. And I feel the Academy Awards have moved more towards a more populist opinion. I mean, a movie like Sinners made a lot of money, was very successful. And I would say that they've moved closer towards it. When it comes to actually having access to the movie, I think streaming does help. It depends on how you want to watch it. I mean, obviously, I wouldn't want to watch Train Dreams on my phone or like an iPad, but it does allow you to see these movies and allows you to, especially with the shorter window now for theatrical, which is not great for the theatrical world, but it does, I feel like, give people more access to these kind of movies for sure.
I think we have to think about the business of streaming when we're talking about streaming, because while it can make things accessible, when Netflix buys a movie and doesn't even put it in theaters, that doesn't necessarily mean it's making it more accessible. It just means Netflix wants to keep its product to itself because its ultimate aim is to keep people in their homes and watch everything at home. So I'm more skeptical about that, like, accessibility argument because of that. Like, the only reason why Netflix puts, let's say, Frankenstein or Train Dreams into movie theaters for a week is so that they can be eligible for Oscars. If that wasn't a requirement by the Oscars, we wouldn't be seeing Train Dreams in the theater, or we wouldn't be seeing Frankenstein in the theater, because theatrical is not their business. So I always want us to be a little careful when we think about accessibility in that way.
Well, you asked if the Oscars have been made more accessible. That kind of happened when they expanded the Best Picture list to up to 10 films. So in that regard, yes. And then you see nominees like F1. I enjoyed F1, but F1 was a trope machine. There were a lot of cliches there. The action was great, but it was nothing that I hadn't seen before other than the F1 racing. That was the hook for me. As far as streaming goes, I commend Netflix for working with A-level talent. And I commend them for working with talent that doesn't have the hesitance to make demands. Like Guillermo del Toro has a writer in his contract, from what I understand, that Frankenstein will eventually get a physical release on 4K DVD. So, and I'll enjoy that at home. I wish, and as far as critic screening goes, the one in this area was in Columbus. I couldn't make it to that. I wanted to see Frankenstein on the biggest possible screen I could. And it looked great on the TV I had at home. It would have looked better in another format, though.
Yeah, I would agree with what you're saying about accessibility in terms of opening up the field. I mean, I think I remember the first time a Star Wars movie got nominated for Best Picture. It was clearly a changing of the whole, of what the meaning of the award is. And I do think that does increase accessibility in a sense. I think it changed. I don't think since that expansion of the Best Picture category, frankly, I don't think the Oscars have been the same. I don't think they've carried the same weight, and that the victory of the Best Picture, it's sort of weird because it feels like they're beating more people, so it almost feels like it should be more cachet on the winner, but it feels less important that when they win nowadays than they used to. So I think there's some upsides and downsides of that accessibility.
We know part of the Oscars is honoring people who have passed this year. So as we wrap this up, we've got just a couple minutes here left. We know that Robert Redford, David Lynch, Diane Keaton, Robert Reiner, Catherine O'Hara all passed this year. Any particular figure passing that impacted anyone here on this panel in a profound way?
Rob Reiner for me, because I did the junket for Ghost of Mississippi.
Wow.
Yeah.
And even back then, it took someone of his gravitas back then to get Ghost of Mississippi made. Even with I think Whoopi Goldberg had won her Oscar by then. I'm not sure. Ghost came out in when?
94, I think.
So yeah, so she had power. She didn't have that kind of power. And even back then, you could tell Rob Reiner was, quote unquote, an ally. His heart was into doing the right thing. So to hear that news back in December, it really threw me back to the junket I attended for that. It's like, okay, that's a serious loss.
Wow. Yeah.
Wow, Robert Redford for me. I mean, The Sting was the first movie I saw as a little kid that I felt I didn't understand it but I felt like I'm watching a movie for adults and I'm enjoying it as much as it was the first movie for me that did that, and it was tremendously influential. I remember when Paul Newman passed away, that was a big moment for me, and now Robert Redford passing away, it feels like I'm all grown up. So
Lynch has devastated me. I think we grieved for a whole year at the Cinematheque, along with our patrons watching Lynch films. I still think about him.
I think Robert Duvall passing, just one of the great character actors who's been in Godfather movies and everything. I mean, I just feel like it's kind of like watching these 70s titans who are going away that just take away a big part of the history of cinema, at least the movies that I really love to watch. So.
I just rewatched True Confession. It's on Prime, if you remember that one with De Niro and Duvall. Unbelievable film.
And see, I remember him. The Paper. It's
Oh,
underrated Ron Howard film
Yeah.
to me, but he was absolutely fantastic in that movie.
Yeah.
I want to thank our panel for a wonderful discussion today talking about film in 2025. We've got Igal Kaufman, multimedia journalist with IdeaStream Public Media. Thanks, Igal.
Thank you.
George Thomas, staff writer with the Akron Beacon Journal. George, thank you.
Thank you.
Bilgasu Sisman, director of Cinematheque at the Cleveland Institute of Art. Bilgasu, thanks.
Thank you so much.
And Nat Dinga, producer and instructor at Tri-C Film Academy. Thanks, Nat.
Thank you very much.